The following is an exclusive presentation of Blaze Sports.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Blaze Game Day here at the Blaze Game Day studio in Tempe. My name is Jordan Talley alongside Josh Cooper and Annie Wingert, and we're going to talk about everything ASU sports today: men's hoops, women's hoops, ice hockey, bat sports, you name it. But let's get into it. Arizona State men's basketball won over Kansas last night and wrapped up their season at home. What have been some of the overall impressions this season?
I have one sentence for you. Bobby Hurley needs to be fired. I'm sick of it. He needs to go.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's been underwhelming, to say the least, although I don't know if there was many expectations given almost an entirely new roster. But
and he's had one winning conference record in 6 years. That's not acceptable for one of the biggest schools in the country, in the most powerhouse conference in the country. It's just not acceptable.
Yeah, I think the big question at the start of this season was obviously his contract was up and he had almost an entirely new roster, so it was whether or not he could get through to his team and create chemistry on the court. And I think given the outcome of the season, he wasn't really able to make that happen. Only a couple of blips of that. I mean, we saw Texas Tech, obviously, and then last night against Kansas. So.
Yeah, I think the brightest spot for this team was Masamba Diop, right? He was a rookie coming out of a foreign country, and he came over and has instantly just been dominating. I think I would love to see retainment of him. However, I'm not confident in that, right? We lost Jaden Quaintance last year to the portal, along with most of our team, Adam Miller, Joseph Stannon. I don't see why Masamba Diop's going to continue buying into a program that's not buying into its players, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think that comes with probably a new coach, but I would say that ASU's number one priority going into next season should be keeping Masamba Diop. He's got a lot of promise. I mean, obviously being 7'1" in basketball is definitely going to give you some potential, but when he's able to be aggressive, he's a really great player. When he's able to play good defense, get his arms up, he's really great and grab rebounds. And he's actually a great shooter, great free throws, so I think that is the number one thing ASU should focus on.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, he reminds me a lot of Joel Embiid. I see a lot of flashes in that game.
So last night, Arizona State celebrated its seniors. It was senior night here in Tempe. Obviously, they've had a lot of skin in the game this season with Mo Odom and Pig Johnson and everything. How is this team going to kind of adjust and go into next season if they can't, retain talent like that?
We're looking at another complete turnover of the roster if we can, right? If we lose Masamba Diop, Mo Odom's a senior. He had the highest usage rate on the entire team. That's not what you want out of your top players, to lose one to another team and to lose another to graduation. We're looking at a total recall again, in my opinion. Even if the same players return, it's going to be a new coach, a new system. We're going to see a lot difference in ASU basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a given, especially if you're going to get a new coach. You're always going to have kind of a season that doesn't start well. I mean, we saw this in women's hoops with Molly Miller. Like, she definitely brought in a great roster, started 15-0, and have had some success, but there has been some dips in that. So, you can't expect whoever comes in next year, if, Bobby Hurley doesn't get a contract, to do amazing, and especially given that Mo Odom was such an integral player of this team. Pig Johnson was amazing too. McCabe had some blips in there as well, but I think that ASU's definitely going to be missing Mo Odom next season.
Andy, what type of coach do you think should replace a Bobby Hurley? You think a young coach, like an up-and-comer, or maybe someone who has a little more credibility in the industry?
I personally think that ASU men's basketball needs a young, new energy, similar to like a Kenny Dillingham or a Molly Miller type. I think that has obviously worked very well with ASU athletics, as we've seen. And I think that there is a lot of young talent out there, and I think that ASU doesn't have an issue with trusting a young coach like that, as we've seen. So I think that kind of energy could really bring something to a new roster too. I think that kind of coach can connect with new players and help build up a program that kind of needs a rehaul.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that.
And like you said, we've seen super dominant performances from their top three. I would say Mo Odom, Diop, Pig Johnson, everything. What do you see kind of, when you have those three go-to guys, what does that say about the depth of the team and the roster as a whole, when you kind of just have those constant three guys being there, but not much coming up from under them?
Personally, I wouldn't even say it's those three. I would say it's Mo Odom and then the rest, right? Like, we see Mo Odom with a near 30% usage rate. He accounts for more than 45% of the team's total assists. That's absurd, guys. He's a talented player, but when you use one guy so much, it makes the scouting report really easy. Like, we've seen late game breakdowns for ASU men's basketball. And that's not random. It's because the scouting reports are narrowing in on one guy, on Mo Odom. It's highly predictable, and we're seeing it again and again.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that, and I think that makes it hard going into next season because you really don't know where your talent lies. I mean, obviously,
Exactly.
you know that Masamba Diop is a guy you want to keep, but like guys like Noah Mayusin, Santiago Truitt, like they've had some good games in there, but like Truitt did not play his best game last night. They aren't very consistent players like Mo Odom is, and so I feel like that kind of makes it difficult. You don't know what you're building around, so I think once they kind of figure that out, and whether that takes just kind of like a filler season, or if they can figure it out in the off season going into next season, is kind of like up for debate. We'll see what happens.
Completely agree. A new coach will help with that.
Yeah.
Once again, like you said, Mo Odom is just the guy for ASU men's basketball. And it's like you said, it's not much of a share around the rest of the roster. What does that say about the depth? Is it ASU men's basketball and Bobby Hurley not trusting the rest of the roster, or is it a lack of talent and a lack of depth, I guess, but also just not truly believing in anyone to step up into those big-time minutes?
I blame it all on Bobby Hurley, personally speaking. I think that this team has not bought into him, and we see it again and again in the end-of-game interviews, right? From an accountability standpoint, this man does not take accountability. It's just something that he can't do. He'll blame everyone but him. Oh, my team can't rebound. How do you expect me to get through to them now? That's not how you talk about your team in an interview. It's disrespectful to his team. There's no way the inside of that locker room looks pretty.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Bobby had a hard time trusting anyone except for Mo Odom, and so then that kind of created a sort of chemistry on the team where the team didn't feel comfortable out on the court without Mo Odom. I kind of saw this last night against Kansas where whenever Odom wasn't out there, it kind of seemed like they didn't really know what was going on.
It's the chemistry.
Yeah, he became too much of a leader in that. So I think that moving forward, they need to have more depth and have more guys that can take over a game and be a leader than just one guy.
I think it's the defensive buy-in too, right? That's the offensive end. But even on the defensive end, I don't think we're seeing guys give their full effort. I don't think they're playing for a coach that they want to play for.
All right, Arizona State men's hoops wraps up the rest of their regular season at Iowa State, and we'll be back right here to check in on Molly Miller and crew and the Big 12 women's basketball tournament when we come back. Welcome back to Blaze Game Day here from the Tempe studio. Coming back and talking about women's hoops here, Molly Miller and crew, just as of recording this right here on Wednesday night, Molly Miller and crew has just defeated Arizona in the first round of the NCAA Women's Big 12 tournament. This was Molly Miller's first season here in ASU, I guess I should say. What has been your overall thoughts from her and what she's brought into this crew, and has she smashed expectations?
She's really impressed me, Jordan, honestly. After coming off a season with 10 wins, the expectations are not very high. She completely retooled this roster, and she revamped this program to a winning season. That's impressive. 23 wins and counting. We're talking over double. That's really impressive for a first-year coach.
Yeah, I think that she has overperformed and done more than anyone thought, especially with almost an entirely new roster. Obviously, she brought some girls with her over from GCU, but she's been great, and I love just the way that she coaches. She looks for girls that have good character, like play with a chip on their shoulder, have something to prove, and I think those are the kind of girls that are going to help her build up a team and build up a program, and I see so much potential for this ASU women's hoop squad. Molly Miller was the right hire.
Yeah, the defense and the grit really stand out to me, along with what you said.
Yeah.
For sure, and like we said, rebuilding the roster, not only talent on the court, but the culture at Arizona State. I feel like there's a different culture surrounding basketball in general, but also women's hoops. Molly Miller has also gotten really involved off the court in other sports. Our club, the ASU club, women's hockey team, stuff like that. What has she meant to the I guess the culture here at ASU, and kind of shifting that a little bit to a more winning culture? And how important is that in a program like that?
I just think the team is bought in. I really think that's the message here, right? When you see a team playing with grit, playing with defense, it means that they're bought into their coach. It's the exact opposite of what we saw in men's basketball. It's a team that loves their coach and loves playing with each other. I mean, we're going to have some returning scores, right? We had 3 double-digit scores this year. McKenna Brackens is going to have to step up being a senior next year with one of them leaving, but I really like this team.
Yeah, and I think that she just has done a lot for ASU athletics as a whole. I think that we kind of are in like a revolution of ASU athletics with Kenny Dillingham doing so much for football, and then we're probably going to see a new coach for men's next year. And I think it's just a kind of a young, fresh revival of like the culture on ASU sports. I mean, I think before this year, no one even really like batted an eye at the women's hoops team, but now it's like it's hard to ignore them. Like she has brought in so much energy and hype, and I think that that is so important in trying to build up a program that's been like pretty kind of stagnant, I would say, for the last like 6 years.
Yeah, she's a shot at Coach of the Year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
For sure, especially, you know, like you said, coming from a previously unsuccessful women's team, kind of in the down years of ASU women's hoops, to just being brought up once again by Molly Miller and starting the season off with a bang. What a great start to the season, historic 10-0, you know, winning streak there for ASU women's basketball.
That's all the wins they had last year.
Exactly. So Molly Miller's, you know, impact has definitely not been unseen here, but moving forward, you know, they're in the Big 12 women's basketball tournament right now. They just beat Arizona 54-51, I'm pretty sure, I believe. And, you know, there was a lot of talk going into this. How will they do? And there's been a big difference in conference play versus overall. And I think that's a very strong subject in a lot of ASU women's sports, or ASU sports in general, I guess. So how do you think they will test up in this Big 12 Big 12 tournament? And is it worth it to kind of go deep, or maybe an earlier exit in the Big 12 tournament, or a deep, not in tournament playoff run?
Yeah, I mean, I think making the big tournament, making a March Madness tournament is bigger for the program. Personally, I think we're in an era now where exposure means everything to these transfer players. They want to be seen on a bigger level. So personally, I'm of the opinion that an early exit in a bigger tournament looks better for the program. But regardless of what happens from here on out, ASU is going to be able to attract new players because they see that there's a coach that really cares about their team.
Yeah, I agree. I think that an NCAA tournament appearance definitely is more important to this program than maybe like an NIT. I think that it'll be their first time making the tournament since the 2019-2020 season, where they didn't even get to play in it. And I think that even if they are an early exit, that kind of an accomplishment and that kind of momentum will carry into the next season, and obviously will bring in transfers. And I think that we'll kind of see maybe what they can do given how they play in the Big 12 tournament. They definitely had some disappointing losses in Big 12 games this year, some games they should have won. The one that stands out to me most is our loss against Baylor, who was ranked 15 at the time, and I think they're 20 now. But that was a game that they could have won, and they kept it competitive, and I think they kind of just fell apart at the end. I believe they only lost by 2 or 3 maybe, and those kind of losses hurt. So I think, you know, going into this Big 12 tournament, they should try to pull out some wins to kind of prove to the committee that they are a team that should be in the NCAA tournament.
And next up, they're going to take on Iowa State next in this Big 12 women's basketball hoops tournament. What are some key things that you think are crucial to their success, whether that be a certain aspect of their play, certain players who need to step up and kind of, you know, flip the table and turn the narrative on their Big 12 play so far in this season?
I think Annie touched on it. I think it's end-of-game composure is going to be big here for this team. Also, I would like to see McKenna Brackens, because she's going to be their highest scorer that's returning for next year. I would love to see her step up into a true, real leader of this team, not the second fiddle, but the A option.
Yeah, I think Gabby Elliott, McKenna Brackens, Haloja Carrera, top scorers this year, also have all had about five or more rebounds per game this season. So they definitely need to step up, and if everyone does their part, I think it will work well. So last year, Poa has like the most assists per game this season. So I think if everyone does their part, it'll really help and kind of prove to maybe transfers or new recruits coming in that this is a team that they want to play for, this is a coach they want to play for, and this is an environment they want to be in.
I would agree.
Next up, we're going to be talking Arizona State ice hockey, as they faced kind of a disappointing end to the season, missing the NCHC tournament. We'll recap that for you and talk about a little bit of Greg Powers and his crew when we come back. Welcome back to Blaze Game Day, here to talk Arizona State hockey, as Greg Powers and crew have officially been eliminated from postseason contention and eliminated from the NCHC tournament after making it last year in their inaugural season. I mean, they faced a lot of hardships this year. Injuries were a killer to this ASU squad. And, Colin Potter, they lost him early in the season to a shoulder injury, and they just kind of never were the same since.
Yeah, I mean, Colin Potter, he's been a wizard with the sticks this year, and I don't mean to quit at sticks, the hockey sticks, ladies and gentlemen. He's been great for this team, and with losing the top 90 points of this squad, I think he's going to have to step up big time next year.
Yeah, I think that even though, despite the drawbacks, there were some highlights. We actually have ASU has a nominee for Forward of the Year in the NCAA conference, Cruz. So there's been some good things, some bad things. I would say ASU gave up the most goals in the NCHC conference this season. So they definitely, not only was it injuries, I think that there was just kind of a bit of a lack of talent. And I think, when you lose a lot of guys, I think it was 40% of the roster had injuries this season. It's hard to kind of find a chemistry when you're constantly subbing new guys in and out. So definitely not the season that they wanted, but I guess we'll see how it goes.
Yes, for sure. And especially this year was, a little bit different for them in the NCAA rule change as well, allowing CHL players to come play in the NCAA hockey after not being able to for the past however long, as seeing as semi-professional. So not only did Arizona State lose key players and key components to their team to injury, they lost a couple back to the CHL as they were relegated back from playing a couple games with Arizona State and then going back and finding that in the CHL as well. But like you said, let's go back to Cruz Lucius. Cruz Lucius and Bennett Shimmick were the duo this year. And both of them are top scorers in the NCAA. I believe Cruz is in the top 5 and Bennett is in the top 10 of all NCAA points and assists and whatnot, things like that. So they were super key to this team, and they were seniors, and now who knows what's next for them. And Cruz Lucius is he is a prospect of the NHL Pittsburgh Penguins, so we could lose them to the AHL. If he can come, not sure if he is able to come back with eligibility, but one thing that Greg Powers emphasized so much this season was their freshman talent, which they do have. So I don't think it was a lack of talent this year, but a lack of direction.
What do you think about the game planning of having these two guys score 90 points for them?
Sometimes that's how hockey works. You're going to have your top line. You're going to have your top productive people like, Bennett and Lucius, and that, Colin Potter was right and slotted in between them with Lucius and Shimmick on the wing. So losing him was super detrimental to this team's overall confidence and production. But Colin Potter is definitely going to have to step up next year. Like, we all said he'll be a junior next year after his sophomore season was cut early. But back to this, Greg Powers, and moving forward, their freshman class is phenomenal. They have a bunch of young talent. Jack Beck, Carmelo Crandall, Noah Powell, all of those guys are young guns who are very successful for them. So, throwing it back to you guys, what do you, obviously coaching is a, hot topic around ASU hockey, as Greg Powers has just extended through 2030.
I don't like that, Jordan. I really don't like that personally. I know they're not ASU's not really paying them with the extension coming from the booster money. They haven't made the tournament, the NCAA tournament, since 2018-19. That's not acceptable. Just like I was adamant that Bobby Hurley shouldn't have a job, I don't think Greg Powers should have a job either, but maybe it's just me.
Do you think it'll be hard for this ASU job, though? I don't know if you know that ASU hockey was built from the ground up by Greg Powers, coming from a club team, starting off as a club team and eventually coming to an NCAA team as an independent, now in, I would say, the top conference in college hockey. Do you think that would be a bad look on ASU if they fired him?
I don't think injuries are an excuse for being that bad. When you're last place, the worst team in your conference, it's not acceptable to say, all right, let's run it back. We got 2 freshmen that are going to come forward. 40% of the team, sure, but last place. We're not talking towards the bottom of the pack. The bottom. Just not acceptable. Gone with Greg Powers for me.
All right.
Unfortunately, I think that this probably just not going to happen, whether or not it needs to. And so I think that going forward, and having in mind that Greg Powers will likely be back next year, it's definitely going to be up to those young guys, like you said, Noah Powell, Jack Beck. A lot of those guys have very similar stats to your Lucius and your Bennett, and so if those guys can like step up and be that power duo or like maybe, more than two like out there, I think that that'll be super imperative for them. And if, Powers can bring those guys in, I think that he could definitely figure out what to do with them and how to make that work next year. I just think it was it was a weird year. There were obviously, issues with the way that they played, but also just it's really hard when you have that many guys that are injured, especially your really good guys.
Exactly. I totally agree. And, the NCHC is not an easy conference. You have, national championships in Denver.
I think that's why the change is made personally.
North Dakota, Western Michigan last year. So it's not an easy conference, and I think they just need to come back and stronger and harder. And I think Greg Powers really needs to utilize the depth on his roster because it is there. Yeah. It is totally there. And going forward, especially goaltending was the crazy thing is that we talked about how they allowed the most goals all season, but their goaltending wasn't really an issue. Both of their goaltenders, and Samuel Urban, who's a freshman, and Connor Hasley, who is a senior that will be, might be losing them, both had save percentages over 90%. So I think it's kind of a mix of offensive disconnect, coaching disconnect, not getting through to players, which Greg Powers has also said in a press conference this season. I think it's just kind of looking at the talent moving forward and seeing where it needs to go because they have the talent in the roster and, just bringing it up and starting it around. But we're going to move on to Arizona State Bat Sports as we come back and find Coach Megan Bartlett into the Sun Devil softballs as we head to Farrington Stadium when we're back.
It's the third year in a row that Ethan's gotten me the same set of pencils. I really don't even know, what he's thinking. Maybe he thinks I collect them or something.
Well, he's gotten me a notebook for 2 years. I take my notes on my computer.
Well, you did tell him, you like the movie The Notebook.
That's a little out of context, don't you think? Parker, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Oh, hey, what time is it?
It's 9:24.
Oh, that's not too bad. It's 4 hours. I usually sleep better on the weekends anyways.
The weekends?
Parker, it's Thursday.
Oh, shoot. Sorry, I'm late, you guys.
Is he gonna be okay?
I think so. We probably should have asked him what month it was, though. Last time I caught him Christmas shopping, and it was February.
Welcome to Bat Sports here on Blaze Game Day as we take it from the rink to the field today as we talk about Coach Bartlett and the Sun Devils softball squad. They've been off to a absolutely hot start. This past weekend they played the ASU GCU Invitational and went undefeated 6-0 all weekend. And we saw some crazy standout stars, but pitching was really what stood out to me this weekend. Mika Lupi taking a huge step up this weekend, pitched 15 innings and had pitched a whole game, all 7 innings from start to finish this past weekend. Absolutely phenomenal, but pitching all around has been great for the Sun Devils. So what have we seen there on the circle?
Yeah, Kenzie Brown was a superstar for this team last year, and she's continuing the wave again. 66 strikeouts in 37 innings. That's nuts. That's almost an 18 K per 9. That's unheard of. Last year, she had a 1.8 ERA. Almost 300 strikeouts to go along with that. She's a stud. I'm all high on Kenzie Brown, and I'm all high on the Sun Devil squad this year.
Yeah, I think it's really important that they are expanding their pitching, though, and having a player come in that maybe didn't do as much last year and can kind of expand their pitching squad, because obviously last year was the Kenzie Brown show, and ASU softball was good last year, but they weren't great, and this season has started great, and I think that is evident in pitching and being able to be efficient with multiple players, and I also think that their offensive power has been elite.
For sure. And, going back, especially back to the pitching, Kenzie Brown was obviously phenomenal last year, and she's been great this year, but we're seeing more and more of a more developed pitching rotation this year. We have Mika Lupi, Aisa, they've just been phenomenal, and, Coach Bartlett was talking about Mika Lupi's development in a post-game press conference the other day, how she's kind of growing into that leader, and she used Kenzie Brown as an example of how Kenzie came in and, really developed into that leader, into the pitcher that she is today, and she saw that from Mika over this weekend. But, like you said, bats have been hot, and nobody is shocked this year. ASU Sun Devil softball has just been absolutely phenomenal.
Tanya Wendell has been a stud, I'll tell you. She's batting over 380 this year, one of 3 players to bat over 380. That's just a sick line to have to start any point in the season.
For sure, and those other 2 players are Katie Chester and Ashley Mejia, who both of them, Ashley Mejia was a freshman last year, I believe, and she's really stepping into her offensive role as a key player this year. And Katie Chester, obviously, has been kind of one of those sleeper agents, I feel like, with Sun Devil softball. She's been kind of just in there sneaking up and absolutely hitting bats out of the park this season so far. But yeah, just what are we seeing offensively behind and hitting just in general?
I just think that there's not a weak spot on that lineup. Like, if you just scrolling through those stats, like everyone's batting average is like above average. Like, it is incredible to see what they're doing. Scrolling through just their schedule, they've scored so many runs this season. It's unbelievable. So just being able to have that much diversity and that much efficiency from every single player on your lineup is truly incredible, and it's been fantastic for the Sun Devils.
Hey, let's not be fooled, though, right? We still haven't seen them go against elite competition yet.
Well, I don't know. I'd say Wisconsin gave them a run for their money. Michigan gave them a run for their money. Oklahoma did, as we saw. But I think this is a very, very, very solid Sun Devil softball team.
I love to see the wins where they just grind it out, right? They had like a 2-1 victory recently. The Sun Devil squad is showing, as you guys have both touched on, just the balancedness of this team is going to be big. I'm excited to see some Big 12 action coming up.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to the Invitational this past weekend, they scored, I believe it was about 52 runs all weekend in 6 games.
Wow.
Run ruled 2 opponents out of their 6. So they're just super hot offensively. Bats are hot. Everyone, like you said, there is no holes in this roster whatsoever. You have such depth in Kaylee Pond and Tiara Ho Ching and Ashley Mejia. Like we've said, Yaya Acuna has recently stepped up to the plate as well. And yeah, it's just phenomenal. And as we said, we're going into Big 12 play. And I think, kind of what we have been touching on all episode is how ASU sports have kind of struggled in Big 12 play. So what do you think we can expect from this Sun Devil team as we enter conference play?
We're ranked 23rd right now. I would love to see a continued rise in that. I think it's really going to depend on this next week, right? We have the Territorial Cup. That's going to be big to see if we can have sustained success against the even more elite level competition. What are you thinking, Annie?
I think that it's going to be a big test, although I think that they already have had some big tests, as we've mentioned. And I think it's really important early on before your conference play to be able to play against good teams like that and find out where your holes are, because, when you're starting off the season and you've kind of played no one, and you go into conference play and then all of your issues are exposed. So I think going back, they could look back at their Oklahoma game. What did we do wrong? What can we fix going forward? How did we fare against better pitching? Like that sort of thing. And I think going into Big 12 play, there's a lot of elite teams in the Big 12. So I'm very interested to see how it plays out, because this team is very solid, as we mentioned.
Yeah, it's the best start they've had since 2018. All right, 19-3, a 6-game winning streak. They have all the momentum right now.
And just wrapping up this part, we have, like we said, seeing new opponents, tougher pitching, and tougher bats offensively. What do you think is going to be their go-to pitcher this coming up recently? Who do you think is going to be the
Brown.
one?
If it's not Kenzie Brown, I would be floored. A pitcher who has almost an 18 K per 9 with a 2 ERA, that's not normal. That's not normal, folks. That is a next-level pitcher. It's a pitcher that would be by far the best player in the MLB, right? If we were to translate it over, it's a pitcher that's just dominant, and I want to see more of Kenzie Brown.
Yeah, I honestly would love to see not just a go-to pitcher, just a completely well-rounded lineup, pitching room. I think that that's super important. That's what you see from those elite teams, is that there isn't a hole. There isn't someone that comes in and you're like, oh, like this is going to be great. Like, I would love to see that from the Sun Devils, because I think that would take them to the next level.
I'm gonna bring it to Mika Lupi. I think Mika gets a lot of innings this coming up as we open up as the Sun Devils open up conference play. But we will be back talking more about sports and ASU baseball and Willie Bloomquist and co. when we come back from this. Welcome back for our final segment of this week's edition of Blaze Game Day. Ready to talk ASU baseball. Started out on a hot start, 8-0 to begin, and then they lost to Oklahoma. That Oklahoma series was a little bit tough, but they started out really hot, stunning everyone, beating number 13 ranked Oklahoma in a run rule victory after 7 innings. And then they just crashed and burned the next day, losing 4-3 against Oklahoma. What was the key difference maker between those two, and why was it so, jaw-dropping that they were able to do it the first time? What wasn't clicking the second time?
So there's two things I want to point out, and that's one, their best pitcher, Cole Carlone, did not pitch the whole series. Right? He is their ace. He has a 2.87 ERA this year. He took the step up from last year, being a junior now. He's looking more reformed, more polished. He didn't pitch. But then the bigger issue is their batting average with runners in scoring position. 2 for 17 with runners in scoring position. 20 runners left on base across that series. That is pitiful. That is not a clutch team. That's something that's going to need to take off.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a lot of just lack of efficiency, and I think it kind of exposed some issues that they need to address going forward. Like you said, Cole Carlone did not pitch, but they still have solid pitchers, but they just weren't able to step up into that role and be as efficient as they needed to be against a number 13 ranked team in the country. They can only do it for one game.
The pitching depth is in question, though. I don't know if they have a bunch of other solid pitchers. We know Carlone is good, but I don't know. A lot of questions have been raised based on this past weekend.
As far as the season has gone, they have, I think, 3 other pitchers that have a sub-5 ERA.
Yeah, but a sub-5 is not what you want. You want to target that sub-3.5 range, right? As a big baseball fan myself, if I see pitchers on my team with a 4 and up ERA, I'm going to be a little questionable about them. Carlone is the only one in that range they want. I think some work with the pitching coach would be key here.
Like I said, they came out at a hot start. They are currently on a 4-game losing streak. They lost to Oklahoma before facing the SEC this past weekend and losing 3 games in a row. Is it pitching the problem? Is it offensive power? What has been the main Achilles heel for this Arizona State team that started off so hot, sweeping Omaha and St. John's before that?
I think it goes down to the hitting collapse when it matters, right? Like I was saying, 2 for 17 with runners in scoring position is just terrible. You need your big hitters to step up. Your Harrison Lansons, you need them to step up. He's batting, I believe, 380 plus this year. He's been their best hitter. You're going to need your stars to step up when it matters most.
Yeah, I just think that they don't have, like you said, I don't think they have the same depth in hitting as maybe the softball team does. And I also think that, I agree with kind of the depth of pitching thing. The other guys that have potential and talent just don't step up when it's needed. And I think that not only is it happening in pitching, but it's happening in batting. But I think pitching is kind of the biggest thing, because if you look at the teams that they played this weekend, your Tennessee, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, those type of teams have much more efficient pitching. If you're just looking at the stat lines of the box scores of these games, it was kind of night and day, ASU versus these SEC teams. And that's the thing that they need to improve if they want to get to the next level and be as good as these other teams that they're facing.
Yeah, I want to see Landon Harrison take a jump for this team. He has taken a jump, can take the continued sustained jump and be a leader to this hitting squad.
And, all of their losses, I feel like, have been maybe not quality losses, but losses to good opponents, right? They're not giving up games to, unranked or not good opponents. All of their losses so far this season have been to ranked teams. So, Annie, I'm just curious, what are you thinking, sorry, just completely, what do you see in this team going forward as they face more ranked opponents and, Big 12 play that we've so talked about being so, such a big difference from regular play to conference play with these ASU teams? Yeah,
I'm a big believer in it's always good to play those highly ranked teams in your early season to see where your holes are.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I think that coming out of this weekend, that was quite honestly embarrassing for them coming off of such a hot start. You wanted them to go in and be able to prove themselves and at least win one of those games, and they just couldn't finish the job. They couldn't get there. So I think coming out of that, they just need to tweak those things as they go into Big 12 play, which is much more consistently good than the teams that they've been playing so far. They kind of have had up and down.
6-0 at home this year, though. That's something. And they're going back home coming up. I would love to see them get back to their winning ways.
Yeah, so Arizona State softball will take out LMU this week for their series before opening against Arizona next week in Big 12 play. What do you think are the main things that they need to work on and big takeaways from last week moving on to this week? Make sure those, big losses don't happen.
I think we need to see Carlone pitch, first and foremost. And then we just need to see the confidence revamp up with this hitting team. When you go on a 6-game winning streak and then you drop 8-game winning streak, and then you drop 4, that's not going to be good for your confidence. And I want to see a turnaround. I want to see the first game of this weekend, some action-packed baseball from the hitting perspective, right? I want to see this team take them by the horns and just heat up their opponent.
Yeah, I just think they need to kind of turn the momentum around. They obviously there's a lot of talent there, and I think that getting those guys that maybe aren't the best to come up and be more efficient, I think efficiency is the name of the game here. That's going to tip the momentum in their favor. And I think it's a lot about energy, too. Like, Willie Bloomquist is a very, passionate guy. I think they have a lot of guys that are super passionate, love baseball, want to play, want to get out there and want to win. And I think that this is a team that can go out there and win and be a super talented team in NCAA baseball. So I want to see that for them, and I just hope that they are able to kind of start having things go in their favor as they head into Big 12 play.
And Bloomquist, like you said, a leader of this team, said in the post-game interview that he was really disappointed. And I hope that he takes the turn and turns this team around.
Well, that's all for Arizona State baseball as they once again head into LMU this next weekend to, hopefully tack on some more wins for the squad after a unsuccessful and disappointing weekend out in Texas. But that's all we have here on Blaze Game Day tonight from Tempe. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.